Many students here today. As you know, this is our first meeting after the vacation, the first time that we've been here together as a group since the tragedy happened in Parkland, Florida, where 17 people, students and adults, were murdered. And the issue on everybody's lips, as it should be, is school safety. So as a board, we're starting this meeting early. We're changing up our format a bit to start with public comment because we want to hear from you. We want to hear from the people who live in our buildings. We want to hear from our students. We'll ask them to speak first. And we want to hear from our staff, from our administrators, from our support staff, our clerical workers, our custodial staff, our librarians. There's no pressure on anybody to come forward and speak. We realize it soon. We realize people may not be comfortable or may not even know how they feel. But we wanted to offer an opportunity to share your thoughts with us. We also wanted to say that we're all in this together. We are here together. You're not here to convince us. You're here to just help us understand how the people who live in this building, how do you feel? What are your thoughts? And this is not the only opportunity that we'll have. We are always available to listen. We can listen publicly. If there are things that you may want to share privately, we can do that too. We can arrange for other meetings. This hopefully will be the first of many discussions, but most important, we want to hear from you. So with that, unless any board member has any other comment, I think we'll just ask for anyone who wants to come up. I'll ask for students first, and all I'll ask is that you just give us your name and then feel free to speak. And again, we want to hear what you have to say.
How about your grade, too?
Oh, sure, if you want to identify your grade,
Yeah,
sure.
Okay. Hi, I'm Maddie Lesser. I'm a senior. And after Parkland, I became extremely outraged. My mom is the New York co-chapter leader for Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America, so I'm around a lot of gun regulation talk. And it's appalling how something can occur in a town so similar to ours. Parkland is upper middle class, just like us. It's a affluent white neighborhood. And a lot of people say, oh, this won't happen to us, this can't happen to us, but it can. And so I want to address the security of our school. 2 days after the shooting, I walked in without having to be buzzed in and without being looked at by the security guard. He was on his computer. Today, a friend walked in at, and this was at 9:30, which is way past when school starts. Today, a friend walked in at 9:15, wasn't buzzed in, just walked in without anyone batting an eye. That's scary to me. When I had a meeting with Mr. A and Ms. Hardesty today, and somebody was buzzed in, but they weren't stopped at the door. They didn't. The security guards didn't ask if they were a parent or what their purpose of coming here today was. And I don't think it should be like that. In northern New York schools like Tuckahoe, they have ID scanners that people are forced to use when they are trying to enter the school. They put their ID in and it checks their background for criminal activity. And I think that would be a really great addition to our school. And a front door security guard that you have to go through first before you can enter the school, because otherwise there's no point in having a security guard. Also, us students, we have student cards, student IDs. What are they for? We could possibly use them to enter the school. You can't come in unless you have your ID on you, because there could be some kid to come in and not be a part, and something awful could happen. Yeah, our school, it's a high school, yes, but it can be like a college. Colleges, you have to tap your card to get into any building. You have to be seen by a security guard before you enter a building. Just because we're a high school and we don't really have a campus, that doesn't mean that we shouldn't have that. And then another thing I wanted to propose is a resource officer armed and patrolling the campus or the small area that we are on, because although it's not okay to, I personally don't think we should arm our teachers. I don't think our security guards have the capability of protecting us in an incident like that. I also think that more lockdown drills should be necessary. People should have the ability to talk about these things. We only talked about Parkland with one teacher out of all my teachers. Only one teacher brought it up because actually I have no clue why no one else brought it up. We're the ones who are getting hurt, we're the ones who are dying, and it's become a normal thing now. People hear about a shooting and they think, how bad is it? It shouldn't be how bad, it should be why, and we should figure out a way to keep our children safe in Hastings. I know I'm leaving soon, but that doesn't mean that I don't want to feel safe for the next couple months that I'm here, and I, of course, want my brother, who's a 5th grader, to feel safe when he comes to school. And the only way we can do it is if we compromise and if we work together with everyone. So that's it.
Thank you, Maddie, so much.
Hi, my name is Emily Odesser. I'm also a senior. I was kind of going to say something along the lines of one of Maddie's last points, which is just generally discussing how we discuss these issues in classrooms. I've been kind of like an activist since 7th grade in this school, and a lot of the time I see problematic things happening in the media that relates very closely to our lessons, relates very closely to what we're discussing in class, and a lot of the time I'll discuss it with my teachers and they'll say, that's great and I wish we could talk about this, but I just don't feel like we have enough time in class. We have to cover X, X, and X, and like our Regents exam is more important than you guys understanding why this incident turned out the way it did. And then I go and talk to my classmates and they either feel like they don't have the resources to speak about this, or they'll say, it's really sad, I wish I could do something, but SATs are more important, colleges are more important, and I can't pay attention to what's happening in real life because I have to focus on my grades. And I think that is such a tragic thing for young people to be feeling, because if you look at, thank you. If you look at like revolutions throughout history, they've basically all been led by young people. And like, if you know me, I run a teen magazine. I have witnessed the power of young teens, and I know that like we are the ones who go to protest. We are the ones who can influence large change. And what is it if we're coming into this building every day that's supposed to prep us for real life, and we're told either this doesn't matter, because after the recent election cycle, we didn't even talk about that, which was such a massive event for U.S. history. And when I asked my teachers, like, hey, why is this happening? They basically all said, gotta stick to curriculum. So I think that's something that could be really beneficial, is discussion about these issues in class. I think we should have forums for students to be able to discuss things that aren't, X plus Y equals whatever. We need to have space to talk about these issues in real life because, actually, a lot of the time adults come up to me and they say, like, just wait till you're in the real world. And it's like, okay, well, even if what I'm experiencing right now is in the real world, how is my preparation? Am I expected to learn how to understand these events just by myself? That shouldn't be a thing. School is an educational platform, and it should be there to provide us with education for things that are happening in real life. I've also noticed the few times that we have been able to talk about it, it's been a very short discussion. As some of you are aware, we've had some pretty disturbing incidents, not about shootings, thank God, in our school. And teachers will, and I'm not like putting the blame here on teachers or the administration or anyone in general, I just notice that everyone sort of gathers behind it for a few days or a week or so, and then it just kind of loses steam, and we let it lose steam. And I'd really, really like, after seeing so many years of inaction, it would feel so good if, as I leave school, to know that the next generations will be able to not be promised something and then have it lose steam. Like, if we're bringing something up to the board, we should be able to see it come through and come to fruition, and I'd really like to see that in future. So,
thank you, Emily.
Hey, my name is Emma Bowers, and I'm also a senior. What I have to say, I've prepared a kind of a speech, and it's kind of similar to some things that Emily and Maddie were saying. So thank you, Board of Education, for providing a space for our community to voice its opinions surrounding the all too urgent issue of gun violence and how to prevent it. In fact, I think communication in the wake of tragedy, both in small settings such as this and on the national scale, is crucial to coming to any sort of conclusion, which leads to the main concepts I'd like to touch upon today. So up until now, up until the incredibly courageous Parkland students began the Never Again movement, I've seen the prevailing national attitude toward mass shootings as something like, it's tragic, of course, and I can't imagine what the victims must be going through or how crazy the shooter must have been, but these things just happen in America. Yes, these things do happen in America, and often, as of February 22nd, there have been 17 school shootings in 2018 alone. But no matter how often they happen, we must keep something very important in mind. Mass shootings are not normal, and we should never treat them as if they are. They're not some expected byproduct of going to school that we as students should just get used to. We shouldn't forget about mass shootings after some time has passed. What I find most surprising about the Never Again movement and the continued outrage of the students at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas is that their reactions seem so abnormal. Their anger and outspokenness are a first and a turning point in the national conversation about gun violence. The task now falls on all of us to normalize this kind of outspoken reaction and unnormalize these terrible and terrifying acts of gun violence. I think a small first step is not allowing ourselves to forget these tragedies. I believe we should follow the Parkland students' example. We here in Hastings as students and as faculty and as staff members in the community at large should keep following their example and keep talking about these events online with family members and in Board of Education meetings, even after lots of time has passed and even after we could have forgotten. Thank you again for this opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Emma.
Hi, my name is Faith. I'm currently Chapman, and I'm currently a junior. I like to bring up that maybe, like, as a school, we should have an active shooter training, which could be, like, possibly, like, an assembly to, like, let us know, like, what we could do in case if it is an active shooter. If, like, someone is, like, using the bathroom or whatever, we can't get into a classroom. And I also like to bring up, like, on the news, there was like a small video of like, I guess, profiling the safest school in America, which is currently Southwestern High School in Indiana. And this school, when they go through drills, they have a red line on the ground where, like, the shooter can't see, like, the students, and it could help the students know where to go. And in that same area where the red line is, they have a box which helps let the police know whether or not that classroom is safe and whether or not they need help. And also, they have so many cameras up at the school, which is connected to the police department, where the police could see, like, live action and knowing that they're safe and knowing what's happening. And other doors are, like, bullet resistant, and they have, like, all the teachers would carry, like, a panic button, which in case of any emergencies they could press the button and the school system, like, the alarms would go off, which I think is a really good idea. And they also have this in the hallways, they have, like, hot zones. So if there was an active shooter, the police could trigger the hot zones and smoke would come out to, I guess, blind or surprise the active shooter, so they can't do anything exactly or stop them to a certain extent. Even though, like, this whole system is, like, $400,000, which is really expensive, and I understand that. I think it's worth it at the end to make sure that all the students are safe. But so if you don't want to spend that much money, we could do the active shooting training, which is, I think, costs, like, nothing, and it's really useful. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Are there any other students who wish to speak?
My name is Bianca. I'm a senior. Zordan.
I didn't really come prepared to speak or anything, but I'm hearing a lot about being ready for an attack, but I was thinking maybe possibly address the issue of students who feel the need to resort to violence, and maybe addressing and reaching out to children. Because, I mean, I think what Faith brought up was interesting, but it is expensive and it's not really addressing the issue. And I think that maybe students should be reached out to if you can tell that they're being isolated or bullied, or, you know, or have any other, signs of violence and stuff like that. So, yeah, that's all I have to say.
Bianca, thank you so much. Sure, and do we need the microphone to hear you or no?
I guess not. Are our doors and windows on campus bulletproof or bullet resistant? So that's a big thing. I think that the least we can do in terms of what Faith wanted to put into action is try to get the majority of our windows and doors bulletproof, because if we have the ability to lock our doors and stay in those doors, then we won't get shot at if they're bulletproof. That school that Faith was talking about also has bulletproof windows and doors. And that's one other way to prevent something like that from killing people.
Thank you. And just so you know, we haven't even had the opportunity to discuss as a board, so there's nothing that's in or out now. That's why all of this is helpful.
Hi, my name is Charlie Freireich, and I'm a senior. A few days, rather one day after the shooting, I discovered that a couple of friends that I used to go to summer camp with attended that school, and one of them, there were two, one of them posted on Facebook that he was all right, one didn't. So I reached out to the other friend, and he said that he was doing a makeup test, and if he wasn't in that test and in the room that he should have been, that he would have been in the room that got shot up. His father posted on Facebook a picture of him with the shooter. He was maybe 5 or 6 on a soccer team, and I think that was just sort of an eye-opener for me that a lot of the time the people committing these shootings are fellow students, graduated students. I'm not saying that you got to be paranoid and, like, you know, look at the entire student body, but it's just a reminder that in addition to taking hard action, it comes down on the students to, you know, look at the way we interact with each other, because Hastings doesn't really have an outright social hierarchy, but there's a lot of subtlety in the way that people are judged and ostracized, and so I think that we need to take a look at that and, you know, see how we can improve there as well, the way we interact with each other.
Charlie, thank you.
Hi, my name is Nia Doherty. I am a junior here at Hastings High School. A good friend of mine who is a sophomore had a lot of camp friends that went to the school, and he actually told me immediately after it happened, his friends reached out to him during the school while it was happening, saying like, hey, like, I don't know what's going on, like, I love you guys. Very, very heavy stuff. Before the expelled student was caught and exposed for what he was doing, my friend actually knew in advance. He sent me a screenshot of his Instagram profile, and there are pictures. This was a public profile of him with guns, just like even disgusting selfies with guns. And I know that we all are aware as students of the, if you see something, say something, and the fact that in general, I know we can't really do much about Instagram, social media, taking pictures down, but even if I saw any sort of picture with a student of a child holding such a big gun or any sort of knife, some weapon, that should have immediately been reported. And I think here in Hastings we all are aware of that, but I just wanted to emphasize that really if you see something, you have to say something about that, because What if weeks before, kids saw this and said, oh, maybe I should say something. Maybe this could be a possible threat. This might have not even happened. Another thing I wanted to add, what was it? Just give me a second. About Faith said about drills. My mom, she works in an office building in Jersey, and together as the corporation, they put together a 3-hour course for shooting regulations, what to do. They have hired a team. I'm sure online you could find groups of people that come to schools, offices, anything to really show you what to do. And as Maddie said, this is Hastings. We all sit here and say, oh, this isn't gonna happen. This is such a small town of Hastings. We're fine here. But you really, you have no idea what's gonna happen, when it's gonna happen. And I'm not sure how the prices of these things work. I'm sure they vary, but I think that's something very important to do, especially as Emma said, how many shootings since 2018? 17.
So I actually Googled this earlier. That includes any firearm going off on the campus. That doesn't include, or it includes all of them. So even if a firearm didn't kill anyone or wasn't in action to kill someone, it's still on the list. So I think it's approximately 5 mass murders.
Either way, we're in February of 2018. We are 2 months in.
It's ridiculous.
It should not be happening in the first place. So I think that getting a organization to come and show us what to do, because honestly, if I was in that situation, I would be screaming and crying and probably jump out the window and run away. And obviously, that it doesn't work like that. So I think that's very important, because again, we have no idea what's going to happen, when it's going to happen, and being able to feel prepared, coming to school every day knowing, okay, God forbid something happens, I know what to do. We are all prepared as a district, even Hillside. It's horrifying. I don't, especially after all these occurrences, coming to school and thinking, what's going to happen? I don't know. What am I supposed to do? Also, going to what Emily was saying, in my classes today, no one said a single word. None of my teachers. And I think talking about current events, especially when they're as big like this, especially happening in a school should be talking about it. I was really shocked. Even my friends and I were mentioning certain things, but really the administration, staff, students even should really be coming together talking about this, because this has been such a big issue lately. Thank you.
Thank you, Nia.
Hi, I'm Caitlin. I'm a senior here, and I think people probably know me, as high school students probably know me as kind of a little bit of a political nerd, and I guess I'll take that angle a little bit more. Going off what Nia was saying, I think that as a school, and I think this is a traditional expectation and a role of a school, is to educate people to become voters. And I think that this is an issue that a lot of students are really mobilized about, and I think we've seen that in Parkland, and we're seeing this here. There are students here that want to speak about this issue that matters deeply to all of us. And I think that, I know that there is no infrastructure for a civic engagement requirement in New York State, but if students don't know what to do with this kind of need to make change, it's kind of can feel like going against a wall. So I think we need to almost in this district go beyond just talking about it in a class. I think we need to address this. I think there almost needs to be a curriculum around addressing issues like these that matter to students when they are going out into the world and turning 18 and becoming voters, because that's a responsibility of public education, is to create citizens, and a role of a citizen is to vote. And it's not, any school could have been the victim of that shooting. And I think that that's, like everyone else has said, that's something that we take for granted, that it wasn't our school. But if we don't kind of stay informed and speak with each other and have interpersonal contact about these issues consistently, there is no way that even within our small community of Hastings that we can make any change or progress on this issue, even if it has not directly affected our community. But prevention is obviously, for an issue like this, incredibly important. So I think that kind of small things like that could make a really big difference here.
That's great. Thank you, Kate.
Penner.
So I know there are people here who haven't spoken for the first time, so I'm going to try to keep this short. Not only was there so in the past I've organized a few school walkouts, and I've had teachers. I have a group of friends that are all very politically active, and we stayed up the night before, we made signs, we prepared, and then we get to the day of the walkout, and we were planning to leave 5 minutes early and, speak out and have this big thing. And we're about to stand up, and our teacher goes, I hope you're not, planning to do that. I don't remember his exact words, but it was basically I hope you're not planning to do that stupid walkout. It makes me really upset that you guys are going to do that. And kids sat back down. Kids ripped down their posters, and the walkout ended up having 5 people out of the 30-something that were planning to go. So that was just something that I forgot in the first time. But I think that this kind of empathy building and this normalization of real life matters is happening. Because also, someone was talking about a social hierarchy, and I'm not going to get too into that, but there is bullying and there is very bad empathy problems in this town. And it's not smashing your head against the locker, but we do have problems with this kind of thing happening in our school on the regular, and I really do think communication could help. I think if we have better mental health in our school, better mental health care in our school, better normalization of speaking out, all of this stuff, preparing for the real world, needs to happen and needs to happen soon, because there are too many times that we're just letting it go by. And as tragic as this is, if this can be the wake-up call, then it's our right to do that. So many students have died, and it's the very least we can do.
Thank you, Emily.
Hi, my name's Bella McCormick, and I'm an 11th grader. I feel like our main thing that we should be talking about today is the drills that we have, and also the drills that we aren't having. When talking about mass shootings like Parkland, we are asked to consider a certain question, which is, are we prepared if something happens like that? As Hastings High School, are we prepared for a mass shooting? And I feel like the answer is no. We have drills when we are in the classroom, but what happens when we're in the lunchroom? We are surrounded by windows, and what happens if something happens, a bullet can go through a window? What would we do? As students, we're not prepared to be in a situation when a shooter is here and we're in the lunchroom. We haven't talked about what to do. We've only been doing drills in classrooms, and if a time comes where a shooter's here, it's not likely that every single one of us is going to be in the classroom. We can be in the hallways, we can be in the auditorium, in the gym, in the bathroom. What do we do when we're in situations like that? We do not have the training or practice to act in a situation like what happened in Parkland. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Hello, my name is Katrina Spinozzi, and I am a junior here at Hastings High School. Just piggybacking off of what Bella said, her last bit was we're underprepared for circumstances that are in cafeterias, auditoriums, things like that. And in fact, the Parkland shooter was sinister enough to pull the fire drill first before, and unfortunately, a lot of kids found themselves wandering the hallways, doing what they thought was safe to get out of their classrooms. So that's one instant where I can't speak for everyone, I wouldn't know what to do other than run into a classroom if I could find one open. So what I thought would be a fun idea to promote in Hastings High School would be having current events and starting your day off. A lot of kids have homerooms, which is 30 minutes prior to their first period class. Possibly, I think it's a really good idea to discuss whether it's sports or it's what's happening in the politics. It can be things that kids can kids can relate to. It doesn't have to be unfortunately what's coming about in our society today is welcoming or I don't know, unsettling to people, but it doesn't have to be that all the time, you know, whatever it might be. So we do have a current events club, if I'm wrong. I'm pretty sure we do have it, not sure how active it is, but we have one. And maybe we could make it an elective or like a class, like something like 30 minutes out of your day, like a homeroom, like I said before. Or maybe it can be like announced on the announcements instead of the announcements kind of being useless. But I don't hear the announcements anyway, so. But oh, and also we recently had, like, I think last year we had a speaker come and talk to us about hate crimes and like things that were going on in our school. Regardless whether that was a useful like ceremony or not, I think that we should be addressing this problem like we addressed, or not in the same circumstances that we addressed the hate crimes, but with the same urgency. We pretty much addressed that pretty quickly. We shut that down pretty quickly in our school, I think, whether it was active or not. But we like addressed it at least, and we have yet to address this, whether like it was in the classroom or not. And I love going to class every day. I love my teachers, I really do. But school should be more about preparing us for afterlife than taking a standardized test.
Thank you, Katrina.
Hi. My name is Sophie Prevalet. I'm a freshman. I'm going to keep this quick because I know we're running out of time, but I just wanted to make sure that the teachers and the administration and the Board of Education are going to be on board and are going to support the students who choose to walk out on March 14th or April 20th. Or whatever day they may choose, and that there will be no reciprocations for their choosing to do that for their activism in this school. So, yes. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you. Are there other students who wish to speak? Elliot, sure.
Yeah, Elliot.
So, in talking to, my name's Elliot, in talking to a lot of the students, just around the hallways and this past day, and I guess over break too, I think a big thing that a lot of people have conveyed to me is just like drills, like practice and having people, either a professional company you're working with, the fire department or the police department in some capacity, practicing what to do, like full instruction of what to do in the event of that thing. I just heard that a lot, and I just wanted to reiterate about what a lot of people talked about drills and how they're really important for practice. Yeah. That's all.
Thank you.
And not only should we be preparing for what if this happens again, we should be learning how to stop it. Yeah. Like what someone, I think so many people still I forgot who said this, but whatever someone was saying about like not getting penalized for, Sophie was saying this, about not getting penalized for being an activist. Like, I'm not saying we need to have like class discussions on lobbying, but like, I think a lot of the mindsets are focusing on what to do if this happens again. And I think it would be awesome if administrators could help us in not only preparing us for what if it happens again, but let's make sure it never happens again. This was an awful tragedy. It's been happening for years and years and years. We're the next generation. We're the people who are in office. We're the people who will be running the country. So let's learn and brainstorm and do fucking something, do something to actually prevent this tragedy from happening again.
Thank you, Emily. Are there any other students who wish to speak? Sure, I'm just going to have you come up to the microphone again.
Hi, I'm Julia Gardner. I'm a freshman. I don't know if anyone said this because I came in a little late, but one thing that I noticed is, like, I don't know if this is just during certain hours, but, like, once I went for an appointment and I came back and the doors were unlocked, and, like, I noticed a lot of the time the doors are unlocked, and we also have a buzzer feature, so I feel like it would be nice just to, like, keep the doors locked, and then we can, like, buzz in and they can, like, see who's trying to come in, and I feel like that's, like, a really small thing that we could change that, like, just to make students feel more comfortable, if not to like prevent anything. And then another thing that I want to say, I don't think anyone's thinking this, but please don't give the teachers guns. I think that's a terrible idea. There are so many reasons why that's such a bad idea. I feel like people probably already said them before I came here, but I'm not going to say them. Well, I guess I mean, obviously I trust our teachers, but like teachers are under a lot of stress. People could get the guns. Teachers probably don't have the time to undergo proper training, things like that. Like it makes things more dangerous if not like it definitely doesn't make things less dangerous. If anything, it makes them more dangerous. And then one more thing I want to say that I'm sure lots of people have already said, it's very stressful to come to school every day knowing that you have to prepare for your future and you have to concentrate and not feel anxious, but then there's also the thought in your head like I could get shot here, like I could die here today. And it's really frustrating, especially to me. I mean, some of the students are older, but like we're the ones who are, most of us are not 18 and we can't vote for the people who will stop this from happening, but we're the ones who it's happening to. And that's, I think, I don't know if that's just me, but that like really bothers me. And sorry, this was like really a bunch of random stuff, but yeah.
Thank you, Julia. Are there any other students who wish to speak? Was that a yes?
Yeah. My friend asked me to talk about how to phrase that.
No, I was just saying.
So back on the security guard topic, I don't know if there are any security guards out there. I hope there aren't. But I have a first block study hall, so I come in at 9:30. As I said earlier, I was able to come in the other day, 2 days after the shooting, without being buzzed in. The security guard didn't look up from his computer. I'm pretty sure he was playing online games. They do that, online chess. They play games the entire day rather than looking. When talking to a bunch of people, the idea that we have a security guard before entering the second, we have 2 doors, which is like a really big thing. We can use that to our advantage, putting a security guard in front of the door at the top of the stairs to see if anyone is a threat or to ask them why they're coming into our school, make sure they're a student. Because a security guard pressing a button while playing online poker is not okay. And that scares me. Not being able to, most of them are retired cops, which that's great, but they're not going to protect us in case of emergency. The most we can do as of now is run into our classrooms, lock the doors, and like pray to whatever God we believe in that we're going to be safe. So prevention is key. Figuring out what tools we can use to prevent things like this happening in our own town is what's going to make all the difference. So.
Thank you, Maddie.
Sorry, really quick. Parker. Katrina Spinozzi, Junior. Wait, I totally forgot what I was going to say. Oh, security cameras outside of the school. They have like a little like camera to like see who's like faces outside. I don't know. Do they work, or is the tab closed because they're playing chess?
No, they work.
You can say. Okay.
No, the tab is there, but they don't look. They just press the button.
Well, it doesn't matter. Regardless, my I just recently was checked out of school. I had like an appointment. My dad came in, wasn't asked to like sign in. Regardless, he's a pretty fearless looking man. But you never know. So he walked in. He like could have collected me from class if he really wanted to. He like was just like wandering the halls, and I was like, Dad, let's go. But he was like, that's weird. I didn't get checked in. I wasn't asked to sign in. It was weird. And I was like, oh, that is kind of weird. But that and security cameras outside. I know there are security cameras. I know they work. I know they work at Reynolds. I know they work inside the school. How often are checked? Do they have monitors that like are in the hallways in the office? Okay. I just know that like it takes a while for someone to find out who stole $5 out of the locker room. I can't imagine how long it's going to take for someone to like realize a suspicious face or like locate where this person is going or like what classroom or hallway or wing or school they're in, middle school or high school. So that's something to look forward to.
Thank you, Katrina.
The security guard at Parkland didn't stop the shooter.
Yeah.
So I'm not
He wasn't allowed to bring in any bags anymore because he would bring in knives and magazines for guns and sell them.
And he brought
a full backpack and a duffel bag. The duffel bag had a gun and the backpack had a bunch of magazines. The fact that the security guard didn't stop him is the main issue. He very well could have. He very well could have not let him in. This kid was expelled. He also wasn't a student anymore. He was 19. Like, these are things that we should be looking out for, and we're not at this point.
So if something like that would happen to these things, the real question is, would a security guard stop them?
Would our security guards at the moment stop them?
But I also don't think we should be like arming our security guards. I mean, I feel more safe if our security guards had a huge gun. I think guns in school are generally a bad idea. I've seen a teacher, well, I've heard of a teacher throwing a desk at a student once in middle school. So I don't know. I wouldn't really feel safe if that teacher had a gun.
And guys, I'm just gonna, I love the conversation and discussion, and this really is the first of many, and we won't be the only venue. But I think I want to keep it to the comments only because we can all hear you and it's the forum. But are there any more student comments? Okay, before we move on to staff, I just see we do have our county representative here, and I don't know if you're on a time constraint. Do you want to come up and make a statement right now? Okay. Ellen Hendricks from our county government has... We reached out to our local legislators so that they could inform us about what's happening at their end, and they could let us know what we can do to help on our end. So thank you, Ellen, so much for coming. And thank you as well to George Latimer and Mary Jane Shimsky, who I knew are also communicating through you.
Well, I am a legislative aide and coordinator for the Public Works Department, working for Mary Jane. And I have a statement. It is from the Democratic Caucus. It's in draft. It's not full, but I was given permission to read the draft version to you. The Democratic Caucus of the Westchester County Board of Legislators feels the pain and suffering of the families of the innocent students and other victims killed or injured in the school shooting in Parkland, Florida. We believe that the unabated incidents of recurring gun violence resulting in death and injury of innocent victims are attributable to the proliferation of guns and assault weapons in our country. Oftentimes, the shootings are perpetrated by persons with mental illness who are able to legally purchase dangerous weapons in states that lack adequate background checks or have weak gun control laws. I'm going to go on, but I've been listening, and I hear you kids loud and clear. You're fearful. You want to be safe. And I don't know if this is, a kind of at a higher level. It is important, but do understand that every one of those legislators cares. They're either parents themselves or guidance counselors in schools, and they are really searching for a way to be a partner in how we help look after our kids. So, anyway, the Republican majority in Congress continues to block all attempts to pass sensible national gun control laws that will protect families from these tragic events. Despite opinion polls showing that most Americans want stronger national gun control laws, Congress ignores the people's call for relief. The politicians in Congress are directed to do nothing by the National Rifle Association, which funds their political campaigns. I don't think I'm telling you anything you don't know. Here in Westchester and in the state of New York, we are doing our part to prevent the gun culture that leads to massacre of innocent victims. This February 5th, the Board of Legislators passed an act prohibiting gun shows at our Westchester County Center and other county facilities. We believe this action was critical to ensuring that county facilities are not used in any way to promote gun culture. In addition, since we had seen executive offices overturned by other administrations, we believe it was necessary to codify the most recent executive order so that regardless of who the county executive is, the prohibition will be followed. Because just as you've seen on the presidential level, executive orders can be reversed. Previous boards have taken legislative action to keep Westchester County residents safe from gun violence. In 2000, the Safe Storage Act was passed, requiring all guns be properly locked or stored in a gun safe in Westchester County. Also, unlike Florida, New York's SAFE Act is some of the strongest gun legislation in the nation, and we applaud our county executive, George Latimer, for voting on its passage when he was in the state legislature. Westchester County government, and I'm almost done, Westchester County government already provides many shared services that offer assistance to municipalities and schools proactively looking to be prepared for the unthinkable. Training is provided to first responders by both our public safety and emergency service departments. Our Department of Community Mental Health provides training to community leaders, school teachers, and administrators to do all that it can to stem the tide on gun violence and provide help to our schools and communities. And you can probably go on to the county site for a link to a meeting held earlier with the Commissioner of the Department of Community Mental Health to learn more. The board will continue to look for ways to keep the community safe from becoming sadly known because of tragic gun violence like Columbine, Sandy Hook, and Parkland. Vigilance, preparedness, and cooperation from all community members are the keys to our success. And that's the statement. I just want every kid here, and it doesn't matter if you don't yet vote, your voices are important. So you can write, every adult, every student. You can write to your legislators. You can write to Mary Jane Shimsky because she reads everything, she listens, and she makes sure to share with other board members, and they do the same with her. So please, if you have any questions and want to come by, or if you want an email address, I'll give it to you after. Thank you.
Ellen, thank you so much for coming. Please thank George and Mary Jane, and just let them know how much we appreciate. Before we move on to any staff who want to speak, on behalf of the board, I do want to thank our students for being here and for being brave enough to come up and share your views. This is as hard as it gets, and we need to hear from you, and we're hearing, and know that we are listening to every word. And again, this is the first, it's not the last. With that, I'm going to ask now for any staff member who would like to make a comment. Please feel free to come up to the podium.
Hi, I'm Jan Malillo. I'm a teacher at Hastings High School, and I'm also a member of the Hastings Teachers Association Executive Board. And I'm here to read a statement on behalf of the HTA. We didn't want to let this evening go by without you knowing, without the students knowing that this is in our thoughts, and we are very concerned. We appreciate your responsiveness, Board, to this very important and sensitive issue and the opportunity to examine ways to keep our community and our schools safe. Due to the timing and having just returned from February break, we have not had the time to put together a statement that represents the shared thoughts and feelings of our members. Please know that we feel all students deserve a safe, welcoming, supportive school environment where they can learn and thrive without fear, and that no parent should send their child to school and fear that the child may never come home. The HTA remains committed and will continue to work with the Board of Education of the Hastings-on-Hudson UFSD to ensure a safe, vibrant, and nourishing educational environment for our students and community. We will share a more comprehensive statement in the near future. Again, we want to thank you for taking the time to address this pressing concern.
Thank you so much, and thank you to the HTA.
On a personal note, I just want to say that I grew up in this town. I went to school in this building. I've been a teacher and educator for 30 years. I cannot wrap my head around the reality of this situation. When Faith was talking about that schools are now drawing red lines so that our children will know where they can hide out of a shooter's direct range, I can't imagine many sadder things that I would have to try to wrap my head around. And so I would like to say to the students and our children that every adult needs to commit to doing everything we possibly can to make you understand that this is not normalcy, that this does not need to be normalcy, and that we will take on the responsibility of trying to make you feel safe again, the privilege that I had when I was educated in this building. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to take what you said one step further, because we're hearing these statements from our students, but we're also reading and we're hearing teachers say things that we've never heard them say, where we hear teachers talking about being a shield for a child. And we know that every teacher, every staff member in this school would do that. But we will do everything we can so that that never happens. It's about our students and it's about our staff, so they don't have to have those thoughts and those conversations. With that, I invite any more staff who wish to come up to the podium.
Jan, you did me in. I met with the middle school faculty today, knowing that folks probably wouldn't have an opportunity to get here. And some of the thoughts were. How's that? Better? Okay. I met with the middle school faculty today because I knew that many folks wouldn't be able to be here and I wanted their voices heard. They would like a meeting with the Board of Education, but they would like it initially not necessarily in public. They feel that they haven't really wrapped their heads around all of this, and they would like the opportunity to just sort of talk about their thoughts, their feelings, their concerns. They might want to just discuss some security weaknesses that they feel they don't want exposed on camera. So I just want you to know that. Some of the things they did discuss and they were comfortable saying were, some of the issues were the library, the cafeteria, the auditorium. Those are big spaces, and they worry that we can't keep kids safe in those areas. We worry that anyone and everyone has direct access to our building, that our security guard does sit there. Our security guard in the middle school, I do believe, is vigilant in buzzing in people and looking on the monitor, but he wouldn't know from looking on the monitor whether someone coming into the building was a threat to our children and to our staff. He just wouldn't know that. We did hear that certain districts have driver's license and different kinds of protocols. We'd like the board to consider looking at those. We know that Ardsley says something like, if you don't have an appointment, you can't come into the school. They feel that we really need to revisit how we allow people into our buildings. We need to vet the access to people in our buildings. We need to increase our mental health professionals in the buildings. We feel that we don't have enough. And people don't know about them. We definitely feel that there's a real need to increase mental health professionals in the building. The majority of our faculty in the middle school wants armed police officers in our schools.
Say that again?
The majority of the faculty in the middle school wants to have armed police officers in our buildings. One in each building, if not more. There were a handful of teachers that did not want that, but the majority of the teachers did. There were concerns about the Cochran gym, and that the doors are often left open. How that happens, I don't know, but that it's easy access. The green gym also was an issue that folks pointed out, that the doors are left open very often in the green gym. The librarian, Ariana, asked me to share this. She wanted the board to be aware that as a librarian in a common shared gathering place in the school, she's never been given different training for the lockdown than a normal classroom teacher, than a typical classroom teacher, excuse me. I feel that she feels it would be beneficial to herself and the library staff to speak with someone who understands strategies during an active shooter situation that could give her perspective and awareness on options in that unique space. So that's from the faculty. The administrators unit has a statement, and we'd like to share that. First, we'd like to take a moment to remember all of the staff and the students who have died in gun violence. We recognize all the school personnel who have died in these shootings to protect the students. We admire, we admire their bravery and we honor them. And we know we would do the same. But we need to learn from these horrific events so that we can move forward in a way that protects all of our children and school personnel. The administrators feel more can and needs to be done. Security measures in our building are inadequate at best. We need more trained, armed personnel in our buildings, and we must significantly look at limiting access to our buildings. We would like the Board of Education to hire security consultants to meet with our consultants to assess our facilities and to make recommendations for security improvement for the Board of Education to implement. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gail, and thank you to the Administrators Union. I'm sorry. I was just thanking you and thanking the union.
Sure.
And thanking your teachers as well. In response, we would happily meet with the teachers privately because I do understand there's things we can't talk about, weaknesses and such on camera.
Great. Thank you.
I will also say we're tossing around a lot of ideas, and I can see body language, reacting to certain ideas. Know that nothing has been decided. Everything will be decided. We will be in communication and looking for feedback from our community, from our staff, from our teachers. So right now, it's a question of let's discuss everything, let's employ experts, and let's talk as a community. I'm just going to ask for more staff, if there are more staff who want to come up and give a comment. Okay, I think with that then if there are any community members who want to come up for this public comment period, though, let's limit it to school safety. So I would just say come up and speak to the microphone.
Hi, my name is Nicole Lesser, and I'm Maddie's mom. But I also happen to be the co-lead of the New York State chapter of Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America. So I'm going to put that hat on. Although, as a Hastings resident and a parent, it just breaks my heart that we're even having this conversation. I think one of the reasons that communities have a very hard time responding to these issues is because they feel like that they are political, that they're partisan. I really believe, and our organization believes, that this is not a partisan issue, that that we can recognize the Second Amendment and keep people safe from gun violence, and that there are proven effective ways to do that. Certainly school safety and all of the suggestions that have been made about whether it's bulletproof glass or more training or, that's all very important, and I really recommend you doing incredible research to make sure you're covering all of that. But there are other preventive measures that, as a community, we can take. So I would really encourage the school board to collaborate also with other organizations within the community, government organizations. I'd really encourage us, even though we're here with students from the high school, to be thinking about the middle school and the elementary school, and that we work together for a comprehensive plan that is covering all of the possibilities. So, for instance, I think it might have been mentioned, Sandy Hook Promise was started after the tragedy at Sandy Hook. They have an incredible program about changing culture in schools, addressing the issues that they were talking about in terms of bullying and if you see something, say something, and creating a culture where no one sits alone at lunch. So I really would recommend checking that out. Moms Demand Action has a program called Be Smart. It is not political. It is about teaching parents who do own guns to lock up those guns safely, and teaching other parents that when they go over to, when they send their child over to someone else's house, that they should ask, if you have guns, are they locked up? So in addition to keeping a child from picking up the gun on the bedside table, those guns being locked up could be preventative for school shootings. There are a lot of other programs that we can certainly recommend or help you explore. I know that you've talked to Shelley, and we'll be happy to provide any support we can. Most of what Moms Demand Action does is really focused on legislative initiatives, and there is a legislative initiative coming up called ERPO. It's the Extreme Risk Protection Order Act, and basically it would have if they had had it in Florida, it could have prevented this tragedy. It would allow family members or police to remove guns temporarily from somebody that they are concerned is dangerous. So for those of you who want to get involved at both the local level, but also more on a systems level, I'd highly encourage you to help us get ERPO passed. Just thinking if there's any other big things that I wanted to say. I really want to commend all of the students here. Moms Demand Action was founded the day after Sandy Hook, and we have been fighting this for the last 5 years. But it's your voices that are turning a tide, and we are all here for you to. We've been putting together our army to fight against gun violence for these 5 years, and we will follow you to that fight. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole.
Hi, my name is Sue Mermelstein, and I'm speaking for myself, though I am on the board of the PTSA, but I'm not speaking on their behalf. I was really terribly disturbed to hear that a majority of the middle school teachers favor having an armed guard on the premises. I know that they have the best interests of the school and the students at heart. I know it's well-meaning, but it's a terrible, terrible idea. More guns is not the answer to gun violence. I'm sure many of you are aware that at Parkland, there was an armed guard there. The armed guard did nothing, and while that's horrifying, I can't honestly say I blame him, because a good guy with a handgun is no match for a bad guy with an AR-15 assault rifle. He's just going to be one more casualty. That's not the answer, and please, please, I hope you don't give serious consideration to having armed guards at this school. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue.
Hi, I'm Celia Silverstein. I'm in 8th grade. So, I feel like in the middle school, we don't want to bring this topic up because we feel that it could scare people, but I mean, this stuff is happening to really young children too, and we need to figure out a way to talk about this without scaring people, but this is a reality. It's a scary reality. Yes. So all over social media, it's like thoughts and prayers for Parkland, but those aren't enough. We need to actually do something. So we need to take action. So seeing something and saying something are things that some students will do, but lots of the time, the people who have these things being reported to them, they're not going to do anything. And we need to take away this kind of fearing what people might think of you if you report something, because it would be better to report someone who might not actually be a threat than to not report someone who actually is a threat. And so it's crazy how it's possible that you can purchase an AR-15 more easily than a handgun, and it's insane. But then, so as some were saying, we have to have a security system of checking in students, which I believe, but so we also need to find a balance where we're not like containing students so they can't have any freedom, but we need to do that in a safe manner. And we need to be careful about making assumptions of people who come in, because we don't want to just assume things and then say, oh, you can't come in, you look dangerous, because that can lead to more controversial situations. And so also we need to talk about mental health. You don't want there to be a stigma around it, but we also need to be sure that we are empathizing with people, and this day and age, that's not a thing, and that's not okay. And so we can't just assume that if someone is having a hard time with some mental health struggles, that doesn't mean they're dangerous necessarily. So we need to figure out a way to support them and not make them feel like they want to hide even more and keep that in, because that's when they're gonna burst. So we need to show that it's okay, and we need to have services. And I know some people aren't gonna want to go to the guidance counselor, and so we need to figure out a way to support people who maybe just need some time to sit alone and think things through, or maybe it's not even talking about it. We need to cater to what people need to help work through this. So we need to learn warning signs and not be like, oh, look at them, and then just have people attacking them, because that's also adding to their pain. And so we need to help these students and make sure that if we see someone sitting alone, go sit with them or go do something to show that like they matter and stuff. And we need to create a community where we emphasize that belief. So I would not feel safe with armed security, because that's just like fighting fire with fire, because they might shoot the wrong person. Like, that would be horrific. And if there are 2 guns or so, that's just more guns. We're trying to get less guns. And so these are just really scary issues, but they need to be talked about because they're important. And we can't just say, oh, you're too young to learn about this. Well, this is what's happening in society, and it would be better to learn about how to take action safely and as a community than have people just learning about this like in silence or just keeping it all in. Thank you.
Thank you, Celia.
Hello, my name's Sabine Pozladralik. I'm in this 8th grade. I'm not very good at public speaking, so I'm going to keep this very short. But I hear a lot of jokes about like school shootings, and a lot of guys and some girls in my grade take it very lightly. And there's like some songs about it that guys like to make jokes about that just, I don't think that they understand the sincerity of it. And I also want to say that as much as I think that we should have like a course where teachers talk about what to do in these situations, and I think that would also help people understand what a big issue it is. And I also want to say that I have one teacher that does talk to us about mental health issues and like does make a like puts in the effort so that we are educated about this stuff. And I talk to kids about that teacher, and they say that she's intense and that she kind of scares them, and that it's not normal to talk about that to this. And I feel like that's just not okay, and I feel like we should be talked about that type of stuff more often, and it should be normal, and it shouldn't be scary.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm also in 8th grade. My name is Sarah Feldman. First of all, I just wanted to say that another thing about teachers with guns, I personally would not feel safe with guns in my classroom. I would feel even more in danger, and I don't know if the other people that spoke feel the same, but yeah. I also wanted to quickly reiterate how important this meeting is for the students. Parkland is not the first school shooting that we can remember, and we shouldn't need to wait any longer to feel safe because it has already been long enough. Columbine happened in 1999, and we've grown up with this fear our entire lives throughout elementary school, middle school, and this is the time to take action. It's already too late, and we can't put this off any longer.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Kevin Doyle. I'm a parent. I want to first say that I'm very, very heartened and happy to see so many eloquent, brave kids who are politically active. You guys are awesome. It bodes well for the future about everything. So keep up the good work. I just wanted, several of you guys have mentioned the security guards. And I'd love to see that you guys on the board are considering a wide array of ideas to do with security in general. I just wanted to make a suggestion that I think is fairly simple and free, so it could be implemented right away. I suggest that all the schools implement a system where the protocol to enter the building for any time is to hand the security guard your ID. The security guard could then write down the name on the ID. I think it's important that the security guard write down the name, ensuring that they write down the same name. As it is now, I can go in and I can write down any name I want. This is only relevant to Hillside, but I also think it's important that when students are picked up from Hillside, probably only Hillside, that they have to show an ID. My wife picked up my son. She's been in the building, I believe, once. There's no way anyone knew her, and she wrote down her name and picked up my son. So I really want to add a strong voice for IDs and having to show IDs. It'll be a little bit more work. I understand that if there's an event where a lot of people are entering, it might take a little longer, but I think it's worth it. If I buy a beer at Yankee Stadium, I have to show my ID. No one thinks I'm under 21, but Yankee Stadium has deemed it so important that a 20-year-old doesn't buy a beer that they forced me to show my ID. I understand that, and I think while people will complain at first, the community, if it becomes an issue where you cannot enter a building or check out a student without an ID, people will get used to it, and I think it's worth it. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin.
I just want to add something quickly about kind of the insensitivity, which we kind of like to push out of our heads and think, oh no, Hastings is this great little all-inclusive, accepting town. But the thing is, we try, but there are instances where that's not a reality. So there once in a class, someone was playing a song, and it was at the very end it had like that crazy, what they like to call ear rape, and then yeah, where it's like and then it was actually someone, it was like The Simpsons, but like dancing around, like very odd. And then at the very end, one guy, I don't really know The Simpsons, so I don't know the character, but he came in with a gun and shot the students, and it was to like Pumped Up Kicks, which is about a school shooting. And it was shocking because part of you is like, how do I react? Because you don't want to be that person who everyone is like, oh, I can't say anything around them. But you also kind of do want to be that person. It's like you want to show that you care and that some things are not okay, because I know like people are making just such insensitive jokes, say about rape or something. Like, it's not rape if she likes it. And like when people say that, they don't say that to me anymore because yeah. And there's so many offensive just things regarding like special ed students, race. It's not okay, and we need to get out of this bubble which Hastings is in, and that also goes with teachers preparing their students for the real world and breaking out of the bubble, and where they realize that when they say these things, it's not okay, because here it kind of gets brushed away, and we need to change that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Celia.
Very hard to speak after Celia. My goodness, that was amazing. I'm Melissa Goldberg. I'm a Hillside parent. I have a kindergartner and a third grader. My little one was a baby when Sandy Hook happened, and I certainly thought that by the time she got to kindergarten, we wouldn't still be having these conversations. So I just wanted to reiterate what Kevin said, which is my concerns. I think there's been a lot of focus on the middle school and the high school here. So I'm here to speak for the kids that aren't old enough to do what these brave teenagers are doing. And I'm terrified. I think about my kindergartner and those classrooms as you're walking by, and you have images in your head of what can happen with the exposure of our littlest ones. And the same thing about walking in and out of Hillside. There is a security guard there, and he looks at you and he buzzes you in during certain hours. But I think about, when I was there for the 100-day celebration, and the entire kindergarten parents came in at once, and anybody could have walked in. And I really think we have one main entrance at Hillside, and I'm really just here about Hillside because I don't know anything about what goes on past that yet. So thanks you guys for addressing that. But I just think that more can be done. And I wanted to thank you for mentioning talking to our students about guns. I had reached out to Tony when I saw him in October, before what happened in Florida, saying, I've had those conversations with my kids only recently, because when I was filling out a form for the pediatrician, when you have your annual, that Chattis form, and they say, oh, have you talked to your kids about guns? And I said, no, because I have 4 and 8-year-olds, and why would I talk to them about that? And I don't really know the right thing to say. I haven't been trained, and so I would love to know what specific programs are, because I've reached out to friends that I know that are educators, and I know they're 2 separate topics. One is about keeping our schools safe and our students and staff safe when we're inside, but I also think that we don't have a choice but to talk to our kids and have those conversations. I have thought about having those conversations I'm sending my kid to someone else's house, and I don't want to assume that there isn't a gun just because I don't have a gun in my house. And I would love for Hillside to have that kind of conversation, whether it's working with our local police department or one of the organizations that's putting together these programs. And I just want to thank you for being sensitive and changing the agenda and allowing everyone to speak. So thanks.
Thank you, Alyssa.
I just want to quickly clarify a point that you made. When we do our Be Smart program, we do not talk to the children. We do teach parents how to talk to children, and the reason for that is you can't tell a child, if you see a gun, don't touch it, and expect that child is not going to touch it if they're little. It's curiosity. They're going to do it. Right. You can talk to them about that, but it's really up to us as adults, if you have a gun, to lock it up. And we have to create a culture where it's okay for parents to ask each other about the safety of their guns before sending their kids over. So we don't want to put that burden just on the children. We want to put it on the adults.
Thank you, Nicole.
I'm Deb King. I'm a parent here. Been in the district for a while. Bless you. I want to say that I think it's tremendous that there are so many people here and so many people that are concerned, including students and faculty. And I think that is really, really commendable. While I would love to believe that having a program in the school or asking students to not isolate other students and not bully other students would be the answer, I can say for a fact, having been in this district for long enough, I've seen several programs come through the school to try to address bullying, and it still happens, and kids are still isolated, and there is a hierarchy, and it's there. And the kids in the high school for sure feel it, and if they don't, then they're probably the ones sitting in the lobby and being allowed to. And I would not want my kids or the staff's lives to depend on other students being able to talk to other students or not. I think it's our jobs as adults to make sure that people are safe and not have to rely on kids to do that. And the way of doing that, in my opinion, is maybe not through assemblies, which to me is a lot like thoughts and prayers, but rather through things that help people feel like they can do something. Because being able to do something gives you a feeling of less helplessness. And it's helplessness that leads to depression or despair or not knowing what to do. If your goal is to have a child or an adult or a student be able to go in the woods and not be scared to death, then reading books on the woods isn't going to do it. Talking to them and telling them what a leaf looks like or how to try to get out of the woods isn't going to do it. What is going to do it is telling them how to use a map, how to use a compass, how to make a fire for themselves, and how to build a shelter. And that's what's going to then, if they get plopped in the woods one day, they might actually be able to say, you know what? I kind of know what to do in this situation. Let me start here and let me solve this problem, or let me just take action because I've been trained to take this action. And I think that's where we can be helpful. And I hear the students saying they don't feel prepared. They don't necessarily feel prepared in all areas of knowing what to do. And I think that's something that's a little on the simpler side of what we can do to help them feel prepared of how to protect themselves in any area that they might be in. It's not going to be perfect. It's never going to be perfect. It's never going to answer everything. But hopefully they might feel like they have some starting point of knowing what to do. And not just like, oh yeah, hey, now what? Oh my gosh. Because it's very stressful. I think there are other things that are really not as complicated as we might hope that can be done. I think that we can work, and it might already be happening, I don't know. You know, I'm not privy to what goes on everywhere. I think we can try to profile at-risk students and reach out to them, whether it's administration, whether it's guidance. I don't even think it needs to be so formal. It can be a system of check-ins, because a lot of times what we hear about these shooters is, oh, there were so many signs. Okay, that means that we can identify somebody, and maybe we need to check in and say, hey, how are you doing today? Okay, maybe it needs to be regular so that somebody knows that somebody's asking about them. That means they're not just coming into the building and leaving without a person in the world caring. I don't think that's that hard to do. I don't know if we have SOPs about reporting anything, where if kids are taught, if they see something online, if you see something concerning on Facebook, I don't know if you or me would know who to report this to, how to report it, if I have a way of reporting it that's anonymous, because maybe I'm not comfortable showing myself or being involved afterwards, but I'm seeing something super concerning. How do I report this? And do we as a district have SOPs? When does that get bumped up to the police? When does it not just stop at faculty of the board, your office, anywhere, but when does that get bumped up to the police? Because maybe that just needs to be a protocol, and maybe they need to come in and check things out. And I can only say that I'm sure that our security could be, could be enhanced to the point of training, that maybe nobody's just looking at how we can, again, sort of keep our eyes open and keep in mind that it's not always the adults that are coming in that are doing anything, So, thank you all very much.
Thank you, Deb. what we're going to do is, I think our superintendent, Tony, is going to speak briefly about security, and then after that, I think we'll take a break. But before Tony speaks, I just want to say again that I'm really thankful that you all are here, that we're hearing from you, and we're talking about things that go to the core of our community. How do we feel about having armed teachers? How do we feel about having armed security guards? How do we feel about doing more drills? Is that good? Is that not good? Are we doing enough regarding mental health? These are all really hard subjects, and one thing that I think did happen here is people could speak about different views safely, and other people respected and listened, and I think that is going to be critical as we move forward. We are going to be engaging experts. We're going to be doing research, so we'll have more material, but I'm very proud. I'm not surprised, but I'm very proud of our students, our staff, and our community for allowing that space to allow very different views on hard subjects and to allow it to happen with respect. And I think that's actually part of what we're all talking about the mental health, about not bullying, and about listening. So with that, I'll turn it over to our superintendent. And Tony, when you're done,
So, hi everyone. And Patrick, I'm just not quite sure which button to press to make it come on. So, hi everyone, good evening. I want to start by saying thank you to our board for building in this time, for building in this time for us to have this conversation. And I specifically want to thank our kids for coming out and expressing for us things very, very clearly from your perspectives as you have lived them, and giving us suggestions and ideas for things that we can do moving forward. I think for me, the things that stood out were this notion of prevention and intervention. We're not just talking about one or the other, and both on the front of gun control and how to be responsive in schools, but also as it relates to mental health, also as it relates to the culture that permeates our space, and I think that's really quite important. And so your voices have informed that perspective for me, and I thank you for being so honest, for being so direct, and for being very thoughtful about what it is that we need to do moving forward. I'm a dad to an 8th grader, and there's nothing that scares me more than sending him to school, unfortunately, at this point, because I don't know what's going to happen, and I don't know where he's going to go, and I don't even know if he knows how to respond if something were to happen. So to hear things from your perspective shed light on that, and I thank you for being so honest. And to our administrative team, to our teachers unit, our custodians are here, our CSEA team is here. I thank you all for sharing ideas, for being engaged in this important discussion. So thank you very much. What do I need to do? What do I need to do? Oh, great. Okay. Well, I need that remote control. If you get that, but it's okay. I'm going to read to you what would be on the screen. How's that? Because there we go. All right. Okay. Good times. So, I also want to just say one thing. I think it's incredibly important that we work from a space where we're not reactive, but that we are thoughtfully responsive. We take action. We don't just react to a situation. And that also involves shifts in culture and shifts in belief, right? So it's changing behaviors, but it's also changing the way that we believe and see things. And so I thank you for bringing that up in the comments that you shared as well. So what I have for you, and it's kind of out of order, but the first slide that you'll see, if you could see them up here behind me, speak to some of the things that we already have in place in our school community. And then the next slide will show you some of the things that we're thinking about. So the great thing is many of the suggestions that were offered tonight have been discussed, and you'll see on the next slide. Some of them have not, so they'll be certainly integrated in the discussions as we move forward. So some of the things that you should know about if you don't know about these things as a community. We do have a district health and safety committee that meets regularly. Maureen Caraballo, she often facilitates the meetings. They feature staff from all 3 of our schools. They feature Board of Ed members as well. In addition to the Hastings PD, generally the chief comes and joins 2 from the Hastings PD, and also our security consultant is also present at those meetings regularly. So the conversations are not just isolated to our building, but they're really about the community and engaging beyond that context. So I want you to know that that is in place. And we actually, in fact, just had a meeting right before the break. Say again. Sorry. Anyone jump in and add if there's anything that I'm missing you want to add? Okay. We do have district-wide and school-based safety plans that the state mandates that we submit. So ours have been, submitted and approved. They are plans that have been thought out, that have been vetted. Our security consultant has been critical in developing and sort of enhancing those plans and being responsive. Even as far as I've seen, I actually happened to walk in at Hillside one day after a drill where there were a couple of potential gaps in the process, and right away, Matt, Dr. Maraglia, is that how you say his name? Was working with the administrative team at Hillside to update their security plan, their safety plan, to address that issue that came up in that moment. And so I think the great thing is, while they are submitted to the state, they are iterative in nature, right? And they're living documents, and that's important for you to know. As I mentioned, our security consultant is someone who has been working with the district for at least 4 years, and did start his time here by doing an audit, and those documents are available. The board has copies of them. We're happy to share those out with the community as well. It is from 2014. We do have staff members who have been trained for trauma and first aid response, and that's incredibly important as well.
Like that, there's a health team.
Yeah, we have a health team that does that. Yeah, not everyone's been trained yet, and maybe not everyone necessarily will need to be trained, but the idea of how to respond to trauma, gun trauma, how to respond in
Police officers actually train staff members. I mean, again, these are hard conversations, and we actually spoke about it at our last Health and Safety Committee meeting. We have first aid boxes that actually have tourniquets, things to stop gunshot wounds, and we had a police officer that is their trainer train some of our staff, just as, I mean, these are things you don't want to talk about. And we actually spoke about the meeting because we put together boxes with directions on how you would apply first aid in different classrooms, and we were talking about how are we going to roll these out to the class. I mean, these are just some of the things that we've been working on.
In fact, in an email exchange with one of our school nurses, I think yes, hi. She was like, "Sorry, I'm busy because I'm delivering trauma kits to classrooms," and this was before before any of this actually occurred. So, and thank you to our school nurses. They play such a critical role, not just in the safety of our building, but in the day-to-day well-being of our kids, both physically and emotionally and psychologically. So, thank you to our nurses. We also have something called the TAP app, and that is in place. It is an app that we have downloaded that the staff, I don't know if everyone's been trained yet, but they're in the process of being trained. And the app, also used by the Hastings PD, literally allows us with the press of a button to report some sort of drill or real emergency, and the police have access to it and will be responsive. It allows it to happen in real time. It allows it to happen across the building. There's like a chat feature, so you could say, "Hey guys, don't go down this hallway," or "This is where the problem is," so that information can be transmitted to staff and to the police quickly.
And the police do have access to they can log into our cameras.
I think during these situations, that might not be the best option. I know our teachers, and I'm assuming or hoping that they would not be on their phones during an actual lockdown with an actual risk. I would be hoping that they're not messaging.
It's just like if there's students missing, there's certain.
It's a way to communicate.
And it'll tell you like the shooters and this.
If there's an active shooter, you're not going to do that. But you're not going to have time to do that. You're going to want to save as many kids as you can.
But I think
if they're locked in a classroom, it gives them an ability.
It's a way to communicate, Maddie. It's not a matter of like playing on your phone.
You can't go over the loudspeaker during time.
Well, I know.
Yeah. So it's.
Sorry, Faith was saying they have built-in boxes in the school, so you just have to press something and then you're done. You can take care of the kids, rather than.
That's a way to lock down the school, is what you're talking about.
No, they push the button and the police knows.
Right, it's a panic button, right, and that allows buildings to lock doors.
I don't believe that that's the case. I think the push buttons are so that the police knows that door is locked.
Yeah.
That they locked it, not
Yeah.
that there's like an automatic system that locks the whole school.
No, the notification is what I mean.
Yeah.
And there are actually automated systems that will shut the doors and lock them. Yeah, that also requires, well, even classroom doors. Really? Yeah, they are. Those systems exist. Sorry. Yeah. Go.
Do students and community members have access to this app? If, let's say, there was a shooter and you wrote, "Don't go to like the middle school wing," would students be able to know that too, or is it just faculty?
The app is, as it stands right now, used by the staff so that they have that information that they, in appropriate ways, could communicate to the kids if necessary. Yeah. Now, you have to recognize that with certain safety protocols and procedures, there's only a certain level of transparency you can maintain, and my understanding, based on the research that I've read, most active school shootings are committed by people connected to the school, right? Whether directly in a student form or tangentially to staff members, and so there's only so much detailed information you could you safely want to share broadly. So that's, yeah. Sorry, you had a question. Great. Yeah.
If there is a student who is, say, out of the classroom in the bathroom, is there a way for the student to know, like, the shooter is in your hallway, don't come back to your classroom?
Well, so it's the app won't necessarily tell the student that information, but the teacher or administrator or staff member would have that information, and we would be able to account for the fact that you're not in the space that you're supposed to be in, so people can actively engage in trying to find you or get you to safety. Yeah. So that's really the idea behind that app. And it's a very common tool that a lot of districts are using. We happen to be using this specific one. But typically the features are pretty consistent, yes.
Can I just say something that on that app we're able to take attendance, as you
Yes.
said.
Right.
And so if a child has left the classroom and we know that child's gone to the bathroom, then the police then know that
Yes.
the child is in the bathroom.
So the
So
child
they-
doesn't know not to leave. That's the key thing I think that we're getting at, is that how are we supposed to know what we're not supposed to do in an event?
And this is something difficult to think of because, like you said, Tony, we don't want to know. Like, we don't want the shooter to find out and be like, oh, hey, room blank
Right.
is open.
Right.
But I also understand what my fellow students are saying in terms of, like, taking a vacuum break and then being walked out. Because I've had, like, that
Yeah.
for being like, I'm walked out of every single room and I'm, like, desperately
roaming the halls.
And it's so scary when we have to imagine that.
Yeah.
Like,
But we do, and it's important.
Absolutely. Yes.
I do think an important thing to take away from this app discussion, at least, is that this is not a solution that's going to cover every possible
No.
situation, but it's better than having nothing. And I think it makes me feel safer, at least, to know that we have this system in place.
Thank you. And I think ultimately that's the case. This fills a gap that exists, right? Because the ability to communicate across the building, this is even across the district, let alone just the building. Yeah, Celia, sorry.
So I actually saw something about a student from Parkland who engineered something to make it harder or almost impossible to open up the door.
Yeah.
And I think if we can try and figure something out to slow them down and we can't intervene,
Right.
because that's a first good step.
Absolutely.
Then I think that could be really beneficial. And because pushing tables up, again, say there's an active shooter, that won't do as much if you actually have something that every classroom has and that can prevent them from breaking in or slowing them down.
Absolutely. Well, and Celia, to your point, that's a big part of this process and in practicing these protocols and these procedures and these drills is to figure out ways to basically slow down this situation if it were to unfold in our school. And that's something I'll speak a little bit about on the next slide as well. Okay. And so regular drills are really important, and clearly we may want to sort of reflect on how we articulate those drills to our kids, so you all understand what we're doing and why we're doing them. And then our security staff, so you are aware they're either retired or active law enforcement agents or have years of safety work and training. So they're not just and there are other situations where the security desk is not here in Hastings, but in other districts where the security desk is manned by like an aide or you know, a volunteer. We have people who are trained in security and safety. Not to say that it cannot be. I hear you, Maddie.
No,
But not to say that.
I've seen an aide at the security desk letting
We had done that last year, but we increased our hours so that we wouldn't use aides anymore to break them. So we actually increased our contract.
We're going to make sure that we ban online poker from any computers as well. That's no, seriously. Oh, I'm not kidding. No, I'm surprised to hear you say it, but yeah.
Like they gave them Chromebooks so they wouldn't be like doing nothing for hours, but that ends up being used for things that aren't.
Yeah. No, great point. So, so what are the things that we can kind of think about moving forward? And again, this doesn't necessarily capture everything that was talked about or that was shared, but it does touch on a bunch of the things that came up. So modifying the safety plan, update the lockdown procedures. There was one thing that actually Matt emailed Maureen and I about right away. One of the things that he'd like to see change in our safety plans is what to do when there's a fire drill, when you hear the fire alarm during a lockdown. Which is what happened in Parkland, right? And so it is, don't come out. If you're in a lockdown drill and you hear the fire bells, don't come out of your room. So that's a minor modification, but it's significant. And again, it's a result of learning from this incident. Threat assessment team training for the staff. So that's something that we are going to be doing moving forward. Looking at the physical needs within our buildings, the two sites, the Farragut Complex and Hillside, and what's great is that the board is in the process, the beginning stages of a bond, and that
We're thinking we need to upfront some of this
Yeah,
work because we have 64 doors that are really not secure. They have the old pane window glass. We had brought this up to the facilities.
Maureen, I'm going to ask that certain details stay off camera.
Okay.
No, I don't mean to.
But okay.
So we have some things that we could do sooner rather than later, which is great. But then we also have the bond that's going to unfold that can address some of these issues. So what are some of those issues? Classroom doors that need to be replaced. Our building is beautiful, but it's old, and so we want to be mindful of that. Door lock systems that need to be upgraded. Right. We want to make sure that doors can lock from the inside, and not every door can be locked from the inside. That's simple but critical in terms of safety. Vestibules, secure vestibules at each building. That's something that we've been emailing about for a couple of days, and I know something that Eileen had shared with me just earlier today, that was something that was looked at in the past in terms of vestibules and what does that mean. It's minor, but it could be significant in terms of the pieces that need to be put in place. At the high school, it would probably be relatively minor because of the way that hallway exists. At the elementary school, it would probably require an extension to what already exists. There is actually a secure vestibule there. At the middle school, it would probably require actually building out, extending like the middle school because there is really no secure entrance because of the. Or yes, and that's another component, right? So.
Where we house the BOCES.
Downstairs.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there is a vestibule when you walk in there, so that might lend itself.
Yeah. So those are the things that we need to be looking at, is like looking at physically the layout of the building. But a secure vestibule, Celia, to your point, allows us to slow someone down, right? And while it may not necessarily stop a person from getting in, it will slow them down, and that's significant.
I was wondering, this is kind of, I think it's more about, I don't know if it does relate to school, like, shootings and those, but the doors that open in.
Yeah.
With those, I feel like those also pose threat. Those doors that open in.
As opposed to opening out, you're saying, yeah. Well, listen, what I will say, open in, open out. Well, here's, yeah.
Mr. Series said something about that, like,
Yeah, yeah. Well, here's the thing. What's great is that doors that are now up to code, the ones that if you were to fix a door in a school or replace one, they are up to code to keep people safe if you're inside. They have, very little window pane, whatever. They're difficult to get through. They lock from the inside. Minor things, but they're significant in, again, slowing down a process, and it really is a matter of minutes that can make a difference, right, long term. Please, yes?
That until we look at the change in doors, all middle school teachers have been asked to keep their doors locked at all times. So all they have to do is just pull the door closed. It's locked.
And which is something, from what, my times randomly walking around the building where I forget my keys somewhere, I'm locked out of pretty much every room, which is great, except I'm, peering through windows trying to figure out what's going on. But I will say that's a simple sort of first step to mitigate this issue under the current, circumstances, right? And I think that's very important. And a lot of our teachers do that, which is great. Looking at the cameras, upgrading the cameras, also putting in cameras in different spots. The PA system needs to be upgraded here at Farragut. That's significant. That's already on the table. And door alarms, just in places where they should not be open. They shouldn't be propped open and things like that. So looking at that kind of piece. An updated district-wide safety audit to see where we are today. So, right, we talked about an audit that was completed in 2014. So what does that look like today? Additional security personnel for both buildings. So not only during the school year, but also during the summertime. Longer hours, and being able to have at least one person who is moving, sweeping the building sort of consistently. Active shooter drills while students are in school. More and more schools are doing these. Again, things to consider, not necessarily things that we would do. Purchase the lobby guard software. That's an example of one of the software. It could be any software, but basically it's as people come in, much to, I don't remember who said it before, someone spoke about it, you have to give in your license and you have to, driver's license. It's very quick, you scan it, gives you a sticker, yeah, and you're good to go. Hospitals use it, schools use it. It is a way to identify people that are coming in. So that was discussed at the last health and safety meeting. And then potentially, some of the other things that came up are full-time school resource officer. Metal detectors have come up as a conversation point, and armed security has come up as well. I'm not telling you that I stand for armed security. I have very strong personal opinions about guns and their presence in school. You're not asking me for my personal opinion. But what I can tell you is that I know the board is committed to pretty much exploring every option. But yes. Right. But I want to say one. Yeah. I think it's very important that we note, and I've only been here a short time, but in the time that I've been here and the conversations I've seen unfold in even the health and safety team meetings, there is a whole culture that exists about safety and security in every community, right? And I think we need to just be mindful of that as we do this work. Be mindful of constantly taking the temperature, because while there are certain people who are strongly against guns, in the form of an armed guard, there are people who may lie on the other side of that. And so how do we have a productive and meaningful conversation around what we think is best for our kids? And I think it's something to be mindful of. Metal detectors. Metal detectors are things that, like, some people are like, don't put metal. And again, what you believe in personally and what we think is what's best for the safety of our staff and our kids and our families when they're in the building, it's a discussion that we need to have. So, yeah. Emily.
I admit that I was a little bit distressed when I heard, and obviously I know it was just a preemptive thing and there will be many more polls and conversations about arming teachers, but I know personally as a student,
not arming teachers. No.
No. Yeah, I just know. Sorry, that was a bad one. I would feel significantly more unsafe, so I'd like to ask that in future discussions about this, not only teachers are consulted, and I understand why in this case teachers were only consulted, but just as we move forward, I understand that teachers have, not that teachers have a right to safety, because obviously they do and everyone has a right to safety, but, as we live in this culture and we see school shootings, we also see a lot of gun incidents happen with authority figures towards young kids, and I don't think I feel safe in a school where someone, like a security guard, because there would be someone who's very intimidating.
We were talking about police officers.
Yeah, I wouldn't feel safe with police.
And that's fine, but I also want to say how terribly important it is for all of us to honor everyone's opinion. We can feel dramatically different, and that's okay. But if we ask people their opinion, and I ask the faculty, and of course we had very little time to get this information, and I knew faculty would not be able to be here, So we're really not even hearing why people were thinking this way. But I did ask them, and I did say that I would represent them. And so in this safe space that we're having, and this will be one of many discussions, I'm sure, even if we disagree terribly, it's very important for us to honor and respect each other's
I
opinions.
fully agree with that, which is why I'm asking that in the future, as we respect our opinions, students are counted as an opinion.
And just to follow up, and that really is the purpose of why we are here today, is for that safe space to hear from the students, to hear from the teachers about, and it's funny, I heard somebody say about teachers staying safe. I have no doubt the teachers said that because that's what they felt would keep the students safe. I have no doubt. But do know, again, people who know me know what am I always looking for? I want to see research. I want to see what does the research show. Come to us, and I want to see unbiased research, and I want to hear from our experts. And we will talk as a community. We will talk with our students, talk with our teachers, our admin, our custodial staff, our clerical staff, our non-unionized workers, our community, our parents, or people who live here who don't have kids in the school. We want to know. And we do know. We know, where Hastings tends to lean, but we know that there are voices, especially recently, that feel differently. And as everybody said, as Tony said, as you said, as Gail said, this is our safe space to talk about hard things. And like I said, what I said before, I'm really proud of all of us.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're starting, it's the start of a lot of conversation. And I'm going to be just a little mindful of the time.
Please do.
Because it's approaching 9. I don't want to cut anybody off, but I know we have kids who probably have homework. So
Homework.
I'll ask teachers to
This
be
is
forgiving because our kids are really engaging in the most important work.
I would say a homework pass for being here tonight would be a fair thing. Anyway.
I
didn't say that out loud, did I? No. Go, Ellie.
Just back to
Yes,
back
sir.
to the
Which point?
cameras upgrades, like door locks. I don't know if this is experience with you, but I've come back from lunch, not on the school property, and I've come later in the day, like after school ends, and there have been adults on the, I don't know if anyone else about this, there's adults that are looking for something, and before I haven't really thought about it, but if they're looking for somewhere to go, I was like, oh, here's the main entrance,
Yeah.
here's like wherever. And if I'm leaving a building and someone's coming in, it's a door that usually locks, I'll let them in.
Yeah.
Should I not be doing that? Should I-
That's correct, Elliot. You should not be doing that, and you should be directing everyone to the main entrance. Not you. That's what we should all be doing. And I think. No, and listen, it's a difficult situation to be in because I could be the person knocking on the door, right? And you know who I am, and you know why I'm coming. But what we also need to recognize is what someone pointed out earlier. So many of these school shootings involve people who are connected to the school community, who are either students, who are parent. I mean, whatever the connection is, and so it's something we do need to be more mindful of. But that's also a cultural shift because in our community, we are accepting, we are comfortable, we are respectful of each other. And so if I see you at the door, chances are I'm going to let you in because I know you, I've sat with you, I've talked to you. But maybe that's not the right thing to do in thinking about safety, right? Maybe I should still direct you to the main entrance. And that's something that we need to be thinking about and recognize that it's going to be uncomfortable for some people. They're not wanting to do that. So.
And I know, like, we kind of talked about the security guards not being that helpful. I just want to say that on one occasion, there was a man outside. I was walking in, I think, to a board meeting, and he was not. He kind of seemed a little lost mentally. And I was like, oh, I didn't realize it at the time, but I let him in. He was sitting on the steps outside, and the security guard did push him off, grabbed me, and forced me in. And that was, I don't know. And I realized after looking at the situation for a second that I probably should have let him.
I'm so glad you said that, Elliot, because I think also just to broaden that a bit. Our custodians and our facilities team, they're also incredibly vigilant. And because I've seen this myself, I've seen them stop people from going in the building or sort of direct someone to a different entrance. So, whether it's a security guard or someone who is doing that work, I think, there are many people who are very vigilant about that because your safety is our priority. So, yeah, thank you for pointing that out. So those are some of the things. These are not, by any stretch of the imagination, covering everything. But thank you again, ladies and gentlemen, our students, for coming out tonight and for sharing your perspectives and for being so honest and so direct and so mature and so thoughtful. You give me lots of hope for what the future is for my son and for our kids, Hillside and above. So thank you very, very much. I applaud you.
And I think we'll take a 5-minute break now.
Yes, a 5-minute break would be wonderful. Congratulations to Cashin, who was named a finalist in the National Merit Scholarship Program. So he'll be one of 7,500 students nationally to be considered for scholarship offers. So that's pretty significant to see one of our kids recognized for that. Also,
let's just get these. Gail, can you all just try to? I'm sorry.
March.
Yes.
Oh, when did the announcement? When do we know when this came?
It was made public.
Thank you, Gail.
February 12th.
Excuse me, Patrick, can we twist that a little bit?
Well, you know.
There we go.
Is that good? Can you see that?
Yep.
Can you see that?
Thank you.
Yeah. Great. Donna would be the tech person. Okay, so so Cashin in February 12th, we were informed of Cashin's accomplishment. Also, we had the Culture Shock event at Hastings High School, which was amazing, and that was on February 7th, or I don't know, it was the Friday before the break, February 5th maybe, and our kids did such an amazing job. I know, Tim, you were there. I don't know if anyone else was in the house, but our kids did such an incredible job, and the celebration of the diversity in our community was pretty impressive. From karate to not karate, martial arts is maybe the right word, to Bollywood sort of style dancing, to a fashion show. It was really, really quite amazing. And our kids are still selling their Culture Shock T-shirts, so please be on the lookout for those. And then we have our Junior Science and Humanities Symposium Awards. Our very own Parker, who we like go home, but she did. she was one of the team members that went there. Alex Campson, who also happens to be one of the editor-in-chiefs of The Buzzer, she placed fourth for her oral presentation on the effects of biodynamic practices and planting density on plant height, leaf width, and stem diameter of cannabis sativa, hemp. Is hemp pot?
Our children are much smarter than we are, is all I can say.
Great.
Marijuana.
I'm sorry, I've led a very sheltered life. I didn't know what that is. Okay, anyway, Emma Bowers, Becca Litsky, and Maya Foxman also placed in different poster contest winners as well. Also, don't forget that we have, so this stuff you've already seen. So we have a bunch of highlights coming up that I want to make you all aware of. We have the Steel Drum concert happening this week. We have the Winter Sports Banquet also happening this week. That's Wednesday. Steel Drum is Thursday. The HEF Handbag Bingo event. I'm not quite sure what that. I don't know if you need a handbag to play bingo. I don't know. Okay, you can win a handbag. There's a late start for students on Friday. There's an audit committee meeting. Oh, it's going to be rescheduled because our audit person could not come, just so you know. Grade 7 and 8 has one-act plays this weekend, Friday night and Saturday night, so just keep that on your radar. Also, the middle school has their science fair this weekend on Saturday, and that's run by the parents, from what I understand, which is great, so we're looking forward to that. And then we have Hillside PTSA meeting on March 5th and our next board meeting on March 5th. What we do need to decide is whether or not we'll do our board meeting at Hillside. We don't have to, but something to think about. And that is what I have in regards to the school safety and also the highlights. I don't know if there's anything, just because we're on school safety, I don't know if there's anything from the district health and safety meeting that we had right before the break that needs to be shared, or not needs to be shared, but should be shared at this time. And Eileen, I know, and
it's one of the committee.
I don't think we're going to do the committee.
maybe you could just, if there's anything that's relevant to this,
The only thing that we had talked about and we sort of wanted to go forward with was this lobby guard system,
Yes.
where somebody, when they're coming into the building, has to give you a valid ID, federally issued or not, state, I guess, commission. And you hand it basically your driver's license, and it scans and it pulls up live whether there are any warrants, any legal concerns.
This has been
custody, things like
asked
that.
by the buildings for probably 5 years. And again, they bring it up every time.
Right.
don't have a driver's license.
We can make modifications because that is a concern, especially with undocumented people. And I know in speaking to Matt, we spoke about how he has some recommendations, which I can't think of right away, because that was a question that we posed there, because we don't want an undocumented person who may have a child here or needs to come here for whatever reason to feel that they can't come in. So we need to find out what other schools are doing around that. But I think, and not that it has to be lobby guard, but we did happened to get, we had like information,
It's a very
and there's different,
complicated
right, it's, yeah, it's one
But
of
I mean,
the
I think
ones.
it's something we're sort of actively looking at and trying to do that.
Is that in the, I think it sounds like a good idea. What I'm wondering is, I know in these reports there were recommendations. Is that what they're recommending?
I'm not quite sure what Matt recommended. You're talking about this thing?
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure if that's listed in there, to be honest with you, Lisa. But I do know that, we can look at it.
It
But
is a software, and again, there are multiples, and actually Matt,
Oh.
Matt actually recommended the lobby guard, because I guess
identification should be required from visitors, so it wasn't necessarily software, but that's on there.
This one's just much more actively engaged from outside information sources.
Is
So
when
it
you
isn't just
slide
that
your
you-
license?
Yeah, they basically put it through this little machine that basically
Scanner.
runs a quick
on the
record.
barcode, you know how all your New York, well, most New York State, or
Yeah.
most licenses have the barcode?
Yeah, you just
scan
swipe
the
it, yeah.
barcode.
And there are
And it
districts that
runs
have
for
haven't
active warrants and
put that
sexual
in,
and
yeah.
those type of things.
Obviously.
One thing I don't understand about that is, so if the guard is sitting there and doing it, but what happens in the morning when tons of kids are coming in?
It is only for visitors, not for the kids. Now, what other districts have moved towards, again, not suggesting that we do that, kids have ID badges as well. Not that they're swiping in, but they're like able to.
But I think they made a good point, because part of the reason we leave the door open during the course of the day at the high school is because they have an open campus for lunch.
Yeah.
And we did used to lock the door, and that was a decision at the high school that maybe now we'll revisit, because it was a constant buzzing
Mm-hmm.
for kids to come in and out. So they do get school ID badges, and we could program them to allow them to
Yeah.
have access during a certain time.
Yeah.
And we could even put it in for whatever time, like maybe we just say, okay, just for lunch we'll do it.
Right, it's only
And
open for 2
all
hours.
our keys are like this, if it's not programmed, it could be only programmed for one door in the building.
Right, yes.
So they're all, you have that level, and actually during breaks, we shuttle, like we only give certain people, in my walk, like we take away people's right. I mean, there's reasons, because you don't want people accessing the building while they're not supposed to be here either, but we can do that with the students too, and I actually think that may be, I mean, again, if that's something that people think is a good idea, that may make some sense to do that.
One thing, I know we've been talking about this for 2 hours, so I'm not going to say very much, but the one thing that I find a little bit confusing, and I would want to get opinions from the safety experts, is that in general with school shootings, it's someone that should be in the building that is doing the shooting. So that having kids have ID cards and, and getting, it's like, if it's one of the children who goes to the school who does the shooting, nothing that we're talking about here is going to keep that person out of the building.
I think
No,
you
you're
have
right.
these conversations long enough. You can't prevent everything.
No.
And so you have to take the steps you can to prevent what you can.
No, I get that, but it just feels to me that you're almost preventing the thing that's least likely to be the problem rather than the most. So I would just like to hear more.
Sandy Hook and Parkland were both non-students.
Right, non-students anymore.
Sandy Hook was a child of like a staff member or something, right? But what I will say to your point, Donna, is while it doesn't necessarily mitigate the issue of a kid being, what it does is allows us to lock the doors at all times, and the doors are propped. I can tell you, I walked by the door today that was propped in the gym, open. It is what it is.
I think it actually has implications beyond sort of the horrific situation of a mass shooting. Just from my secondhand knowledge, there are parents that are sort of at liberty to walk the building or engage a teacher on the spot that shouldn't be. There should be a protocol by which adults enter and leave the building. And I think that moving toward, if we can manage the flow process, not become a bottleneck. You can't have a system where it becomes a bottleneck that sort of becomes overwhelming, because that will create a
whole other
social environment that's the wrong environment. But if you manage the flow process, I think it's the right thing for the staff and the administrators, that you're not just sort of engaged with an adult in the hallway that shouldn't be. And you're nodding your head. I mean, you're your day-to-day.
And I don't want to make excuses for our security guards, and we will, everything that was mentioned tonight, obviously, we'll address with them in a meeting, but I just do want to say we've had one of our full-time security guards was out for almost 3 weeks with the flu at the high school, and the other gentleman who we know, Joe, has not been able to return to us, so we do have like 2 kind of floaters. So again, we're going to address it, but I think Gail had mentioned, I think some of them do a very good job. I don't want people to think that they're not. You know, again, is that going to prevent it? We need to make some recommendations. We have to work with us. We need experts to help us, like,
But
make better.
I think, right, I think it's also a matter of what we lay down as an expectation,
Right.
right? I think there is a sort of relaxed atmosphere, which is a wonderful thing, and we don't necessarily want to lose that, because I think you can go from school to prison, like, feeling in with like 2 or 3 quick, changes, and it doesn't necessarily mitigate the potential of being, a target in this type of way.
We want the kids to feel
But
safe,
we
so
want-
if
right,
that was
yeah.
that their opinion was that the people weren't watching, like, we'll relay that information to the security, because I think, I'm sure that, I'm not making excuses, I think they may have seen them, but
Yeah.
I don't want,
Yeah.
if the kids, if that's the feeling that they feel, like.
We need
then
to be responsive,
We need to
yeah.
be responsive to that.
What I will say, just very quickly to share with you, in contact with Matt, who is our security consultant, he and I have been emailing throughout the week. One of the things that he shared with me is, like, I want you to be mindful of the things that you have done as a district, which is really significant. And he works, I could tell you that while I was at the conference in Nashville, there are people that work with him from out of the state. And so
He was just in Florida,
Right.
like, all this.
So he is someone who's regarded, which is great, right? So that speaks to his sort of reach. He talked about the fact that we've established a culture of safety. Can it be enhanced? Can it be improved? For sure. We've done adequate emergency planning. Our plans are updated not only annually, but like there was literally they changed the plan at Hillside one day because of some gap they saw in their drill. Adequate emergency training, so drills, tabletop exercises, practice aspects of emergency planning. We're going to continue to do that. We've collaborated with first responders. Hastings PD is part of every conversation. They've expressed some of their frustrations, but they feel like they don't have access to certain things that they feel would help them keep the community safer in case of this sort of attack. We've had adequate emergency equipment and supplies. I talked a little bit about trauma kits. They're being delivered. Infrastructure that needs to be in place. And we've enhanced our emergency communication capabilities. And I could tell you, I was in a workshop at the conference I went to, and these were literally the, like, 6 or 7 bullets that they went down, that what you need to do to, when you're looking at safety, it's not just that you're buying a program, but have you created a culture of safety? Have you done adequate safety? Like, everything Matt bulleted down, coincidentally, was verbatim what I saw in a workshop that I went to. So I felt better, and this was by a former policeman who is now a security consultant in Chicago, the guy that I happen to see, who works with many districts. So it was good to see that the language that Matt was referring to and about our district in a positive way was consistent with what's being talked about.
And I did ask him to come in, and to Tony's point, and we can use anybody, but Matt actually he does the Westchester County, their whole building. He's all over New York State. He does all major colleges. I mean, he's really the top of the top. It's not like we just have some local guy. So I think we should have him look and do an audit of our safety, like, to see where we are today, but.
I was just going to ask the same thing. Can we, I don't know if this is something we need a vote or a transfer of funds or anything, but do we get an estimate from him? Because I would say let's.
That's what I was
that
going to
should
ask
be
you
our
tonight.
first.
Yeah, it's going to be a recommendation.
Okay.
Well, we had given this as a point of reference.
Yes.
Obviously, it's very outdated. We just wanted to kind of show you what an evaluation that had been done, and he did that. Is like days of walking around the building, working with the administrators, coming in, not allowing them, seeing what door, like, there's a lot of pieces
No, that's
to
great.
it.
I guess as I went through it, now I didn't get through all of it because we didn't get it till today.
Yeah.
There were things I saw in there that I know no longer exist. I don't
Correct.
want to start highlighting those on
Yes.
television,
Yeah.
but that's why I would like to.
Yeah, no, an updated plan, it's a great recommendation. I think it's a good use of money. And what I think is powerful about it, it's like, here we are. So this is where we were, 3.5 years ago. This is where we are today. But recognize that there have been updates throughout that 3.5, right? So it's not like we did this, okay, like, a lot has happened. And he highlighted for us the things that, like, right at the top of the list, like the low-hanging fruit that we could really put in place, which is great. Anyway, and again, and it's not about Matt.
Low-hanging fruit, I thought the ID comment was
Yeah.
No, I thought that was great.
Simple.
That's why I said that was.
Free.
Yes. But I
Thank
do
you,
think
Mr. Boyle.
what I will do is we'll speak to Matt tomorrow, and we'll
Yeah.
get a proposal from him.
Yes.
We'll bring it back to the board. He is more than happy, if that's something you would like him to, because he's our consultant, he can come and speak to you on, as a board. He can, I mean, if that's something you want later in a meeting, to have him come and be part of if you were to have another meeting like this.
Very, very, very quickly, can I just raise one other issue?
Sure.
Please.
On the school safety topic, part of it is around security audit, Matt, everything we just talked about. The second part of a lot of the student comments that we've had was around a culture issue and a language issue among students. And I guess my ask to you, Tony, but in your meetings with the building administrators, I've seen or I've experienced some issues in the school, in the district, in this short window post shooting, where our procedures around addressing inflammatory language from a student are vague. In terms of, without doubt, we need to do a thorough investigation as a district, and we need to be able to communicate to parents the way in which our investigations happen and the reason for those investigations happen and what the protocol is for involving, outside.
Whoever, right, the police, right,
police, mental health professionals, otherwise.
Yes.
And I guess that is something that I don't think a security audit is going to solve, but it's something that we have to solve internally. And it's got to be led by you and the administrative team and the other parties to say, but it can't be vague, and that's just what I've experienced in this last week. Is it's unclear, and it's sort of at the whim of, and I use the whim, but it's not.
No, I understand.
It's just at the best interest of, you get what I'm trying to say. And that's something I would like to see attacked.
I think how I hear, what I hear you say is we're talking about clarity of protocol and consistency in that. We're not talking about, I don't think I'm hearing you say like a zero tolerance, policy that every time this exact thing happens, this is the consequence. But every time this thing happens, this is what we do. Because I think what often gets sort of lost in the conversation is we get focused on the consequence, but we really need to be clear about the process.
Yeah, it's actually both, honestly. And it's not zero tolerance because zero tolerance leaves no margin for error.
Right.
But one of the things that I guess, it's true, we've had it with swastikas, we've talked about it around race. This idea of violence, whether it's sexual violence or whether it's physical violence, it's not zero tolerance, but it is a working towards a culture of words have impact. And at 13 years old, you're old enough to have words. You're old enough to understand that words have impact, and the response to students and as dealt with as parents.
Agreed.
And so that's my ask, and it's a vague thing. I can't say this is how we would do it, but as a school, we need to move towards that.
I will say two things to that. One is that we are working there is a team that's working together to put that protocol in place for dealing specifically with incidents of bias, but I think that could really sort of serve as a foundation and with minor tweaks can apply to what happens when there's threatening language used, right? That is not necessarily racially charged or even gender, whatever it is. And I think that's the first time from what I've heard from people that we're having that conversation, and we're having it with kids in the room, with parents in the room, with staff in the room, with administrators, right? With faculty and with administrators, and with our custodial staff and our. So I think to your point, that's in process. The other piece is that has been on the horizon and constant source of conversation is mental health, because it also speaks to our mental health supports. And when you at least my understanding based on what I read about what happened in Parkland, this is a young man that was identified and that interventions were attempted relentlessly by his teachers and mental health staff and administrative team or whatever, and yet there was a breakdown beyond the context of the school, actually, and so that link to the community, where it's maybe the PD or whatever it is, the local law enforcement is critical as well, because that could potentially address where that crack, is. So yeah.
Just a few things on that, and then I think when we finish this discussion, let's have a quick discussion about what we want to discuss for the rest of the night.
Sure.
We may want to revise. It's 9:30. I know we go late, but I think the power of what we sat through has really drained a lot of us. In terms of, I don't know if we'll talk about the budget or not tonight, but I think in light of the tragedy that happened, I would like us to examine how much money we're allocating towards security as well as for mental health. I heard Gail say that the Farragut teachers wanted more mental health supports there. And I was also really taken, as I think many of us were at the work session, when Laura Sullivan shared numbers on the amount of students who were going to our nurses for either straight-out mental health issues or for physical issues that were a response to mental health issues. So I'd like us to just look at those two line items when it comes. And then the other thing, and I think this goes a little, I think you make a good point when you say that the student at Park Lane was identified. One, I think it was Nicole talked about Sandy Hook, and what can we do with kindness and support to help those kids? And I love the No Child Sits Alone, like, you know, that other aspect. And we do have hierarchies in our school, and we do have a pecking order, and to the extent we can defeat that or support.
Well, I think, though, that speaks to the importance of this conversation about mental health on a K-12 continuum, because it is also about intervention, and intervention starts at a young age. And so knowing that we can put things in place for our children as young as kindergarten and give them exposure to language and lessons that hopefully will, you know, build some similar the foundational pieces, and then looking at, as you get into middle school, which is often where mental health issues present themselves at that age, especially as kids are hormonal and, you know, their body and their chemistry is changing, have the staff also to intervene, you know, when necessary. So I think your point is appreciated and well taken.
And I'll add to that our current middle school students, you know, we had an SEL program, social emotional program, at Hillside, and then it got lost in the sauce when Common Core came in. So those children who are now at the middle school did not have that foundation. So I think whatever would naturally occur at the middle school is particularly profound because of the lack of the SEL, which we just brought back this year. Now, the middle school, I think, has had it consistently, but like I said, those kids coming up have not.
Well, the middle school also incorporated the ruler program this year, so that's another SEL piece that they put in place here at the middle school.
Right, on top of the
second step, yeah. And second step is being used at Hillside. The teachers and the administrative team put that in place this year. Yeah, but I mean, whether or not there was a gap in the past is certainly something to be mindful of. But I do think that there are a lot of resources allocated at the middle school that speak to supporting the mental health of our kids. So. Yeah, so that's all I have for our update.
Because we're going to have an opportunity, I mean, to refine the budget, and even with, that was part of when we talked about, we don't know where we're going to end up with the security audit.
Yeah.
To your point about the budget, I actually just looked to see what we had allocated today, and I'm talking just about our security officers now and MAT services. So as we go through the audit, if we end up doing it this year, that may result in needing to allocate funds to.
Yeah, well, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah,
we may
so
want to make, in light of the past few weeks, we may look at that through a new lens. Now, with that, let's just throw this out. I know we're supposed to talk about the budget, the non-instructional part. Patrick's the only one in our audience. I know it would be on tape. Do we want to move that to the next meeting? I'm not pushing. I think everybody.
Is there any
we're pretty. I think everyone's pretty saturated at this moment.
I'm supportive of that.
So let's just see what we.
Just see if there's anything that we.
You know, Tony, you may want to update us on the director position.
I can quickly tell you that today, yesterday, the window for application closed, and we had over 70 applicants, and we have a very, what I would qualify as a pretty nice and deep pool of candidates with principal experience, with assistant principal experience, with director experience. Actually, some people who have worked as assistant superintendents in other districts, and so it is a very nice and robust pool. I will, in terms of process, if we're going to start with me screening a bunch of candidates, and then kind of going from there.
Do we want to have several screeners like we talked about with our diesel committee, so that whatever we bring, somebody else won't bring?
Yeah, that is part of the process in terms of looking at resumes as well, but interviewing candidates. It won't just be me, but I will start the screening process sooner rather than later, so we can kind of be rolling, if you will, doing screenings. So.
Okay. And then there'll be a search committee.
There'll be more to it. Again, it's just beginning with quick, like, hey, are you normal? You know, because on paper you read this way, but how do you read in person? Not that anyone's not normal. So yeah, that is where we're at with that. And then there's business items that you probably should vote on, just because some of them are retroactive.
Probably vote on the
Yeah, because they were holding the last time, and some of them have, actually, some of the people, just so you know, if there was an implication in somebody's paycheck, we assumed, because it was things that the board was aware of, I didn't want to hold up. Some of the people who've been doing leave replacements for us, had I not had it done, they wouldn't have gotten a paycheck. So I hope you're okay with that, because they're here working. So.
Okay, so we have business items under number 6. There was one that I wanted to pull out. It was on the... It was
826.
It's 826 on one of the warrants, and it relates to Family ID. We're going to Family ID, which is the online. It's for your athletic forms and your child's pediatrician form. You upload it into a computerized directory. So why don't we just put that to the side? And can I have a motion to approve all the...
No, just that one.
826. Yeah. To approve all the business items under 6, with the exception of the one we just mentioned. Motion?
So moved.
Okay, in a second?
Second.
All in favor? Wait, did you move and second?
I think I let Christina move, so I seconded.
On the second one, just so you understand, I plan to vote no. The reason is, I respect Jesse for all the great things he's doing. As people who know my work, I'm very concerned about data security, and I just don't have the confidence in this. And I'm very thrilled that we are still offering parents the ability to give their forms on paper if they don't want to use the computerized system.
On what are you voting now?
This is Family ID. It's a new system that the
Right, where is it on here?
It's actually in the warrants.
It's in the warrants, so you're not going to see it on the paper.
Yeah.
Okay, so with that, can I get a motion to approve number 26?
Yeah, warrant 26 under the warrant.
Warrant 26 under the warrants.
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
All in favor? All opposed? Let's just see what else we have. CSE, we should do CSE?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so may I have a motion to approve all the items under CSE, which I guess we may have just done under business.
Oh, that's true.
Did we do it under business, Janine? Okay. All right, motion?
So moved.
And a second? All in favor? And personnel we should do as well? Okay. May I have a motion to approve all the personnel matters, including the appointments and amendments, the leave of absence, and the resignations?
So moved.
And a second? Second. All in favor? I'm sorry, Janine, what did we move too quickly on?
I did.
Donna is moving.
I'm just moving.
Donna's moving everything.
Okay, the minutes. May I have a motion to approve the minutes from February 5th and from January 29th and from January 22nd? Donna.
So moved.
And a second. All in favor? Is there any committee report that we need to move forward on right now?
I don't think facilities, we didn't meet, did we? I'm trying to
Facilities we didn't meet. It was Donna and Jody.
We just hadn't been able to.
We talked bond for a little bit. The auditors were the
met, but you
architect.
folks may have talked about it at the last
we
meeting.
didn't.
Then we haven't. Yeah, okay, then we saw.
I think we can.
Okay, then we have old business, has nothing. New business, one was about the signature protocols on emails. Should we?
I brought that one up.
If you want me, I can tell you what my sort of thought process is behind.
Yeah, sure,
okay.
go ahead.
The ones that are signed by me are ones that I'm sending out to the community, typically just at my updates or specific information that is coming from my office. The ones that we sign as Hastings UFSD or Hastings schools are typically internal, with general information that the whole community should have access to, but not coming from a specific school or person. So it's like, this meeting is coming up, join us, or this happened. Like one of the incidents involving a swastika happened, but we weren't sure if it was the high school or the middle school, so it went out to everyone. But it came from the whole team because we couldn't identify where it was coming from, and we didn't want it to just go to one group. We wanted everyone to get it. So we use Hastings schools when it's general information that we want the whole community. BOE signature is only used, as far as I know, and Janine can confirm, when you all agree that whatever it is you're sending out. So there are 3 different signatures that I...
Yeah, I understand that. I'm just a little bit concerned.
Yeah.
My concern is that when it's signed Hastings School District, I think the community, the sort of assumption is it's from everybody, including the BOE.
Okay.
As a Board of Education member, I don't feel comfortable being potentially linked to something that I don't know about. So I feel like that needs to be fleshed out a little bit more.
Okay.
I'll, on the heels of Christina, I've had a couple times where I've read those emails, and I'm thinking, well, you sort of think, who's this from?
Yeah.
And I think if they're from the administrative team,
Yeah.
I think it would be better, like, I often think, like, well, it's a little puzzle that raises in my mind, and I think it would be clearer if it said administrative, I don't know what it could be, but
Hastings
something more.
administrative team or something to that effect.
Or the names under it. It's funny, and my problem with it is that it felt very impersonal for a small school
I would
district.
agree with that,
It's
too.
a change.
Yeah.
And it felt, I'm just used to seeing people's names, and I prefer, even if it's the administrative team, I'd rather see that and then the names listed. It just feels more like, oh, it's Lou. Like, we just, I don't know. It seems
just like,
impersonal.
who is it coming from? I think when it's sent out, even just in terms of like, Hastings School District, it's, well, who's sending it? If you have a question, who would you go to? Where would you begin? So
Okay. I mean,
it
no,
needs to be a little bit more directed.
Totally fine. There's no, I have no issue with that.
Okay.
So yeah, we can clarify the signature.
And then when we sign it as Board of Education, I just want clarification on that as well. So when we sign, and I think we're doing this as a protocol, we're all sort of agreeing to it before we sent it out.
We are.
Right?
The only time it's not if it's something very routine,
Agenda.
like if Tony and I are sending out an agenda.
Well, just the blast that says,
The
hey,
blast,
meeting is Monday night.
exactly, and
Yeah.
like
Okay.
something that's so not an
Okay.
issue.
Okay.
And what I'm trying to do, if it is a letter that we're all doing, is to follow our attorney's advice and have the feedback go to Tony, who can then digest it and give it back to us.
Great, thank you.
Okay, then I had asked for an advocacy, there's a letter I drafted. I don't know, did people get time to look at that material or not? Okay, it's not urgent, but I guess I would say before the next one. It's pretty non-controversial, just in a nutshell. These groups were asking only computerized tests, and what I'm saying is, can you please leave it to the district if you want to do pen and pencil or computer? But you can read it and see the reasons.
And our next meeting is next week, right?
Yes.
It's not
Monday.
2 weeks,
I
right?
think
it's
that's
Monday.
right.
Yeah.
Next Monday.
So I think this one we added.
We added this
Can't
one on.
remember which
Right,
one.
yeah. This was an add-on, yeah.
Okay, so if you guys don't mind reading it, because it's pretty straightforward.
Does that give us enough time, Lisa?
Pardon me?
If it gives
Yeah,
us-
I don't think it's anything that the Board of Regents is going to be acting on right away.
Okay.
I would just, I would like it to be answered, this thing that's out there. Second public comment period, no. Board of Education
What's the argument for going to full computer?
Well, I'm going to give you this is my
Your take on it?
biased
Yeah.
response. They were all submitted by these education reform groups that are very pro-charter school, and I think that when the more they can get to standardized testing and
Yeah.
standardized test scores and facilitating that, the more they can push that agenda.
Yeah.
So I think it facilitates that. I think it should be left to the district for a lot of reasons. Okay, so now the other thing, I think we have nothing left here unless we have board comments. We did have an executive session that we were going to continue, but we can, if everybody wants, we can continue that at a different date, or we can move to enter
We should just
executive.
try to finish it.
Just finish it? Can we just
Okay.
finish it?
I think, can't we just
Yeah,
meet and
it
finish?
seemed like it was
with that?
pretty-
Okay, so then let's have a motion to go into, to return to executive session to discuss a potential arbitration litigation. Motion?
So moved.
In a second? All in favor?